What is good, Nuts and Bolts Sports family? This is Randall Gim here, and I am honored to present to you the Nuts and Bolts Sports Eastern Conference Preview Special. We got some fantastic guests with you here today, and we got some fantastic topics, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So let's introduce them one by one. First, my man, Greg Rector. How we doing today, Greg?
Awesome, Randall. How you doing?
Fantastic, man. Anything you're most excited about in the East to start off with?
It is going to be a battleground.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear. It's better than years past, right?
Oh, exactly.
All right, next up, we got my man, Kevin Lucas. What's going on, Kev? You are muted, sir.
Oh, you got to unmute.
You have to unmute your mic, sir. There we
go.
Go.
How y'all doing today, man?
Fantastic.
I'm all right.
I'm doing good today. My bad.
Just go ahead and repeat everything you just said.
I said I'm doing well today, man. It's a good Friday. It's been productive. Happy to be here.
Love it, love it, love it.
And
last but absolutely not least, from the Game Breakers podcast, we have Will Greggs. What's going on, Will?
What's going on, guys?
It's good, man.
Man, so happy to have all you guys here. And make sure that you guys like this video, subscribe to Nuts and Bolts Sports, and tell your mom, your dad, your cousin, your sister, your auntie. Make sure, get them all to subscribe and get us to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, man. So let's get right into it. Eastern Conference Special. We have to start with our Milwaukee Bucks, the defending champions. Giannis, man, MVP caliber player. He's taken over in the finals. Nobody can stop him. Man, Will, can they repeat as Eastern Conference champions?
I don't necessarily think that they can repeat as Eastern Conference champions. I mean, to me, it's the Brooklyn Nets. Like, they are the biggest threat to the Bucks with or without Kyrie Irving. Now, with KD and James Harden leading the way, they will always be a big threat. And if they can stay relatively healthy, the signing of like Pat Mills and all the additional pieces that they made, especially with Kyrie Irving, most likely going to miss this season as of right now, that makes, again, the addition of a player like Patty Mills even more important. But the Nets have a good supporting cast and they can rely on. And I really believe in the rookie, Cam Thomas. I think he'll have a big role as a rookie. And I think that, he is a player that will surprise a lot of people with how integral he becomes with this team in terms of picking up the extra scoring that's going to be needed with Kyrie missing time. But, I think that the Nets are going to come out on top in the East, even with Kyrie Irving possibly missing the whole season.
Let me ask you this, Will. Mm-hmm. If the Nets do advance past the Milwaukee Bucks, do they win it all?
Now that I'd like to say yes, but it depends on who comes out of the West. I think, if the Lakers come out of the West, especially if the Lakers are relatively healthy, I know that those guys are like older. So I don't really want to say that they'll win it all, but I definitely do think that they have a good chance. But it's just too tricky to say. I mean, hopefully some way, somehow, Kyrie Irving is able to play or he changes his mind, and then I could be more confident. But without Kyrie, I don't know about winning it all. But I do think that they will represent the East. For
sure. Kevin, what do you think about the Bucks being able to come back out of the East? Do they get any better?
I don't think they got better. I actually think losing PJ Tucker is kind of a loss for them. I think they're taking a little bit of a step back. It's always that, championship fatigue. Every team goes through it. Every team that's ever won a championship has been through that. And, obviously you've had Chris Middleton and Andrew Holiday play for Team USA this year. So I think that was a good thing for them to get that experience playing with the best players in the world. But I just look at it like, personally, I'm a biased Heat fan. I do think that we're better now that we added Kyle Lowry. I know we'll get into that in a minute, but I also look at Brooklyn. Even without Kyrie, the Nets are still a problem. Like, that's James Harden and Kevin Durant. You know what I'm saying? You can't just discount them just because one of them guys is not currently playing. So is it possible? Yes, but I don't personally think that they will.
Last but absolutely not least, Greg, man, what do you think?
Well, I think the Bucks will challenge, but I don't think they will win the conference. The factors have been talked about. Now, I just want to slow somebody's roll about the Nets because there's a guy named Harden who's going to not go to the free throw line 900 times this year because there's new rules and his little moves aren't going to get called anymore. So you got to remember that there, Will. Just slow it down a little bit now. But no, the Nets are right now the team to beat in the conference to start the season. Anyhow. That's definitely the team that's probably the Eastern Conference favorite.
So can I ask you a question, Greg?
Yo.
So with the new rules that the NBA have implemented, where like let's say for Steph Curry, for example, if he pump fakes, then the defender tries to jump, and then how so now that's no longer a no call. That's not generally how James Harden goes to the free throw line, but that was the rule that changed.
But it's still an abnormal move that Harden uses on his 3-point shot. But the abnormal move is no longer going to allow you to get a foul called in your favor. It doesn't matter who you are.
But I think
it doesn't matter that it's Steph or James.
Yeah, but I think that James Harden draws most of his fouls from contact when he's driving. I mean, like sometimes he does get the occasional like 3-point play. Well, the 3-point free throws if he does miss it, or 4-point play, but I think most of his free throws have come from him driving in the lane and contact being made there, not really so much from the shooting aspect of it.
He's gotten a lot behind the line. He's gotten a lot.
I think James Harden's gonna be just fine though. I'm seeing another 28 points per game kind of year. 8 assists, something like that. Nothing too crazy.
It's gonna be different. It's gonna be different. And right now, you'd have to give the edge to Brooklyn.
Let's take a look at the Milwaukee Bucks roster really quick, guys. So they've added a couple pieces. They got Rodney Hood in there. They've also added Semi Ojeleye, and they re-signed Bobby Portis, but they're missing PJ Tucker, as we mentioned. Is this roster better than last year? Can they meet the same standards?
Well, I mean, me personally, I don't really think that PJ Tucker is that big of a loss, if I'm being honest. I really don't think that he's that much of an addition to the Miami Heat either. I mean, I've seen, I know a lot of people do think that he is the loss, but to me, undersized. And I think that how the Bucks were utilizing him, I know that he's a scrappy defender and whatnot, and he's kind of like that kind of player that gets in like your face. He annoys you a little bit. But to me, I didn't like how they had him on Kevin Durant that entire series. I think that Giannis should be guarding the team's best player, not necessarily PJ Tucker. So, I mean, I don't really think he'll be that big of a miss. I mean, he was there to grab some rebounds. He's going to hit 1 out of 5 threes, and he's going to call it a day and wear some nice sneakers. But in terms of overall production, PJ Tucker's not going to be missed like that. So I think that the Bucks will be just fine.
The Bucks are going to be fine. And especially if you don't have the same repeat performance of Middleton on the road versus at home. I mean, if that guy was consistent in a road game, look out. But he just seemed to only play at home. He would disappear on the road, right?
Fast.
And if you get that consistent effort from him in road games, Bucks are a different team.
Absolutely. Good way to start it off, guys. Let's move on. And now we have the Hawks and the Celtics. Between the two teams, Greg, my man, who is going to have the better upside this upcoming season?
Hello, Monty Perez, if you're out there watching. It's Trae Young and the Hawks. They just have the better upside overall. The Celtics added bodies, but I don't think they added the bodies that are going to put them over the top from being a 500 team last year. Yeah, they might be a few games over this year, but I think the Hawks are definitely much further ahead than the Celtics. They're younger. They got more options. That's just a younger, deeper roster as far as I'm concerned.
Kevin, do you agree with Mr. Rector?
100%. I feel like my biggest knock on the Celtics is that they don't really have that much perimeter shooting. Like outside of the, duo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you got probably Peyton Pritchard. Al Horford is a decent shooter. Romeo Langford is a guy that they're still trying to to see if he can prove himself. But outside of that, they don't really have any perimeter shooting. And you look at the Hawks roster, I feel like it's plenty of guys in that roster that are not done getting better. Like we have not seen the peak of Trae Young. I think Cam Reddish is a star in the making. I'm very high on Onyeka Okongwu. I know he's going to miss a good portion of the beginning of the season, but once he gets back, he should be good for them. Kevin Huerter is still a very solid player, and they just got guys that are not done getting better. I think that's the key. It's just so many guys that don't even really have a defined role, but I think that's what the regular season is for them this year, to see how all these guys can mesh, because it's a lot of talent in Atlanta. And even John Collins, who's only like 23, 24, he's not even done getting better yet. So I just think it's much more upside in the Hawks than with the Celtics. I do think the Hawks are slightly better. I don't think it's a big gap between them and the Celtics, but I would personally take the Hawks over the Celtics.
Yeah. Just to toss this in there real quick. The Celtics last season went 500, 36-36, had a lot of COVID issues with Jason Tatum. He had to take an inhaler halfway through the season. And then Jalen Brown got injured as well. So they had a tough season, but we're still able to get the 7th seed. And then we all know the Hawks, man, got the 5th seed, 41-31, and made it all the way past the Knicks and the Sixers and fell to the Milwaukee Bucks. But it was a fantastic run for them, overachieved. And anybody else got anything to add on that one?
Go ahead, Will.
Let's go, Will.
Yeah, so to piggyback off of what Randall said, especially when it comes down to the Celtics, I definitely do think that they are going to have to kind of be around that 7th, 8th seed, or maybe they might even miss the playoffs, if I'm being honest. I'm not too big on the Celtics this year. And in terms of Celtics versus ATL, I think that the Hawks have a much better upside. I guess the Celtics, they have Tatum, they have Brown, Smart, Horford. But the Hawks have more younger pieces with upside. I don't really think that outside of the Celtics starting 5, really, there's nobody really go to on the bench. I mean, again, they have Romeo Langford, and he was highly recruited out of high school and stuff. But ever since he went to Indiana, things just kind of fell apart for him. Well, not really fell apart. It just hasn't worked out to what he was predicted to be. And Trae Young is one of the best young point guards today. And they have a solid starting 5 as well, with some pieces to come off the bench. And it's a bunch of 3 and D pieces over there in Atlanta. And that's kind of like what the NBA is kind of trying to do. You have a lot of, 3 and Ds, guys that shoot threes and could defend very well. And Atlanta, they have a lot of size as well. You have Clint Capella. And then, like you guys said, I can't really pronounce Nyanku. I don't want to say his name wrong, but
Onyeka Okongwu.
Yeah, so they have some good pieces. You saw Cam Reddish. It looked like he was starting to come into his own, and he wasn't even a big part of their season last year. And in the playoffs, DeAndre Hunter didn't even really play. He's also a big piece that's going to be coming back next year. So the potential with the Hawks, I definitely think that they are better than the Celtics now, and I think that they'll be better than the Celtics in the future, unless the Celtics can really figure some things out. Because to me, I think that the Celtics are in trouble, and they're such a historic franchise, but I think that they're going to have to look about kind of like a rebuilding kind of period. I just don't see them doing any better than what they probably did last year.
That's exactly why I posed this question there, Will, because it does seem like they are in trouble. And a franchise their foundation was built at, however many years later than the Celtics, they're already starting to eclipse them, surpass them. And so if you're Brad Stevens and you now have Ime Udoka as the head coach over there, who Tatum and Brown really like, how many more years are you going to go at it? How many, let me ask you, Greg, how many more years do you think Celtics window is to win a championship?
I don't think the window's even open for them right now. I really don't.
Love it.
They don't have the perimeter game that this game requires right now. It's too limited on the perimeter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Greg there. Yeah. Like there is no window. The Celtics are not winning a I don't know when the last time the Celtics won a championship. I know it was within the past decade though, like
KG.
last 10 years. What year was that? Or
yeah.
Yeah, so that wasn't even the past decade. Yeah, they're gonna have probably like another decade to go. But I don't think that we'll see one anytime soon. I think like life would be a lot different the next time the Celtics win a chip.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest issue is just the fact that they're trying to put too much on the plate and shoulders of Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum. And I just always say that imagine if the Celtics had a true point guard. That's one thing they've been lacking for the past couple of years, is the fact that like they put in Isaiah Thomas, who's a scoring guard. They put in Kyrie Irving, a scoring guard. They put in Kemba, a scorer. you need a true point guard. Like, imagine if the Celtics had like a Malcolm Brogdon, a DeJounte Murray, like a true point guard, a Kyle Lowry, like guys like that. If you get a guy like that, that takes everything off the shoulders of those two star guys that we just mentioned, and I think it'll make it easier for them. But the fact that they're basing all of that on them is what's their downfall. And I think, like you guys have said, like, is it a window? Not really to me, just because, like, again, you can't expect Jason Tatum to do it all. Celtics fans believe and think that he can carry that entire franchise, but it's more to the game than just scoring. And basketball is a team sport. One dude is not going to lift you to a championship. It's never happened before. Even all LeBron's teams, he did not do it by himself. So I just think that Brad Stevens needs to be smarter when it comes to roster construction. He did a pretty good job of putting together a roster at the last minute this season. I'll give him some credit for that, but all in all, they need to add some more pieces for the future if they really want to keep Jason Tatum in town and Jaylen Brown.
I mean, this is still Danny Ainge's roster construction that he's
100%.
inherited. So, he's got to have some time to do it on his own. He'll get that this offseason and all that jazz. But the other thing that the one other difference that you're going to see for the Hawks, however, is you will see teams body up Trae Young as much as possible because it worked. It limited him against Milwaukee. Monkey see, monkey do in this league. So you're going to see guys getting physical with Trae Young.
Yep.
Because he's not the biggest guy in the world.
And with the new foul change rule that y'all just mentioned too, you got to keep that in mind.
Exactly. And he used that a lot too, especially when he's driving into the basket and keeping those guys on his back and then lean forward.
And then lean forward.
That floater. Yeah, that's not going to get called anymore. In the preseason, though, LaMelo Ball drew some contact, shoved his shoulder right into the guy that was chasing him, and then didn't. It was a continuation play and got the and one. So I think some refs still need to get the memo. But
in this league, the calls are still going to be far too subjective. They always have been, always will be. I've decried the superstar foul call for over 40 years. So that part's never going to change. The subjectivity that the referees bring to it. I mean, look at that entire nonsense. All last playoffs that we had. That league also has 5 women who are officials. Did any one of those 5 women get a single playoff game last year? No. Well, what's up with that?
Questions that need to be answered.
Seriously. Yep. All right, gentlemen, moving on. The next question is, will Kyle Lowry put the Miami Heat over the hump? Kevin, I'm going to start with you, sir.
I say yes, because yes, I mean, if you don't know, I am a Miami Heat fan, so I'm very much so biased, but I just think when you just look at last year, talking about the Bucks, the biggest thing that was lacking from Milwaukee was the fact that they did not have a true point guard. You throw in Drew Holiday, who's not even really a true point guard, but he is a point guard that you can trust upon and rely upon. And all of a sudden, just like I mentioned, the Celtics have been missing, they get a playmaker that just takes the weight off of Chris Middleton and Giannis. And so for Miami, that was our biggest problem last year, was that simply, and even when we went to the finals in 2020 in the bubble, was the fact that we had Jimmy Butler being our number one scorer, our number one playmaker, and our number one defensive weapon. And that's just too much to put on his shoulder. So I think you get in a guy that's a true point guard like Kyle Lowry, because Kyle Lowry is, the truest definition of a true point guard. And automatically you get easier shots for Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo is going to get easy looks out the pick and roll. And so you add in that. And the biggest thing too is that he's a defensive guard too. He can still guard, and he shoots the 3-point shot from a high level too. So I just think it does put us over the hump. I'm not saying we're going to win a championship, but I do think that right now we are the second best team in the league. I mean, in the East, in the East.
The second best team in it. All right.
Well, maybe.
All right.
Maybe. We'll see. I mean, I got to experience many years of watching Lowry up here, of course, and yeah,
I'm sorry you have to go through that, Greg.
Well, to each their own. To each their own. Will.
I'm sorry you got to go through that.
I'm sorry that you're a Nets fan. I'm sorry, but
look, I mean,
but Kyle Lowry is what Kevin was talking about. He's that true point guard, and the one guy who is going to love him the most is Bam Adebayo. Bam is absolutely going to love having Lowry there. He is going to get the most beautiful looks. He is just going to have a field day with the passes that Lowry will give him. They're going to have fun. Now, the problem that I still see with the Heat, though, isn't Bam. It's not Kyle. It's not Hero or Robinson or any of the others. It's Jimmy Butler. Jimmy, when you're counted on Jimmy, don't defer all night long in the first and second quarter. You're the man. Show you're the man. Prove it. You're supposed to be great. Then you take the game over. He was a disappearing act in these games. That's in the finals bubble and in last year. Jimmy Butler, you got to learn how to take the control of the team. If you're going to be the superstar, play like it.
Look, in my opinion, Kyle Lowry does not put the Miami Bubble Guppy Heats over the hump. Look, the Heat last season went 40-32, came in at 6. I think that they can look to finish around the 5th or 6th spot this season. And looking at the Heat roster right now, outside of their probably starting 5, the overall squad to me is lackluster, with Tyler Herro kind of being the only option off the bench that they can look to for help. Now, look, I think that the biggest person that's going to be crucial to Miami is Oladipo. I don't necessarily think it's going to be Kyle Lowry. I think if Oladipo could come back healthy and if he can kind of play to the level that we're used to him playing, then I think that will be a bigger help than Kyle Lowry, because to me, we've seen Jimmy Butler play his best basketball with him kind of being that point forward in a sense. And I think with Kyle Lowry taking the ball off of him, I don't think that that's really going to really work to his benefit as much. So to me, I think that Victor Oladipo should be considered a bigger piece than Kyle Lowry. And yeah, I just think that, I think everybody needs to just stop overhyping Kyle Lowry.
We're not overhyping Kyle Lowry. You don't get the traditional. You don't get the traditional point guard still has value in the league, Will.
I know that he traditionally
point guard has value.
I know that he's traditionally average.
Six straight All-Star games is not average. That is not average. And unlike you, he gets to wear the ring. He has a ring. So
trust me, I would have had a ring too if KD and Klay Thompson got hurt.
He's not average.
And if I was playing, please look, Greg, I know you're a Raptors fan, so I don't want to rain on your championship parade. But let's be real here. You should be.
They would have beat anybody.
You need to be thanking the basketball heavens that you guys were even in that situation. Kawhi Leonard had to get you guys a ring. He said, "Yeah, it's boring up here."
Pascal Siakam and everybody else contributed to that. That was a team effort. Thank you, Sergio.
Gasol.
It was a team effort. So that's.
But I'm not taking away from. I'm not taking away from anything that you guys did in the finals. Yes, I get it. Steph Curry struggled and whatnot, but I think any player would struggle when they lose 2 of their best players that they're used to playing with, because now he's the main focus. Nobody's really worried about Draymond Green. Let's be honest.
This is a pro team sport. Injuries happen, and they can't be used as any excuse, as you well know.
Injuries
happen.
No, of course, and that's fair. But let's take some context here. Like, let's not act like the Raptors were just the most dominant team or something. It's context.
Look what they did to teams. Look what that team did to their opponents. They took away their number one option, each and every opponent, all the way through that year. They just simply did it. Didn't matter whether it was Giannis. Didn't matter whether it was Embiid. Didn't matter who Orlando threw at them. Didn't matter who the Warriors threw at them. They limited the best player on the opposing team.
So let me
that's basketball. Right? That's basketball.
Okay. And look, I get it. People, they like Kyle Lowry. Me, I'm just not that big on him. I'm not saying that you guys overrate him.
No, seriously. I'm not overrating him either, Will. The whole thing about Kyle Lowry is that he can still be a contributor. That's all he is.
Okay,
I'm not putting him up on a pedestal. I've never put him up on a pedestal. He's a 6-foot point guard who was paired with another 6-foot point guard, and it was a miracle that worked at all. But because they were both so good defensively, it did work. Kyle Lowry could still contribute. He's not number one. He never has been anywhere close to it. But you have to respect the effort, the drive, the determination that he plays with. He is a bulldog.
I mean,
to do what he's done for all these years and taking out guys like Embiid in the post, stopping them dead in their tracks. Giannis, you can't.
Plays. I have to see these plays.
We'll go back.
I can't really think of like when I saw Lowry stop Embiid or Giannis, but
those clips weren't requested.
It's happened.
You got to request those clips for him to be in the show.
Real quick, my last point about this too is I just think it's the significance of having a true point guard on the team. You have a true point guard that opens up everything for everybody. I mentioned Drew Holiday earlier, but also you can go to Phoenix last year with Chris Paul. Chris Paul came in 1 year, and all of a sudden Devin Booker is having the best, time of his life, and everybody else is having all the shots that they want between Michael Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder. All those guys got easy shots and easy opportunities because of Chris Paul. And Chris Paul's 36, so they're around the same age. I think Kyle's 35, 36 right now too. So I'm just saying, like, having a true point guard is important. Having a dude that's an extension of the coach that's actually on the floor and making these plays and trying to set his teammates up is important. And I just look at it like our biggest problem was that our number one bucket getter and Jimmy Butler was also our number one playmaker. And now he has the freedom to just be that bucket getter and that defensive stopper. And Kyle could be that playmaker and take the playmaking responsibilities off not only Jimmy, but Bam Adebayo too. So Bam can be great because Bam is not done getting better either. And Tyler Hero's still getting good too. So I feel like I do think he can do it. So I'm happy with it.
I really think Bam Adebayo is just going to feast for Miami. He is going to feast because he has a true distributor who will know where exactly to put him on the floor.
Facts.
He's a coach out there.
He knows exactly when to get his own bucket or facilitate for others. And he knows the guys that haven't gotten the ball in a while, he spreads the love. And that's what I love about the guy.
And that's important.
I think just like similar situation, just like with Chris Paul in Phoenix and Kyle Lowry going to Miami, I think that these are going to be two players who are going to eventually, after this year, I expect, especially because I think like the contracts, I think that's also going to be a problem as well. I think that, Kyle Lowry, to me, is on a bad contract at 35, going to be making $30 million the next 3 years each season. So I guess like annually the next 3 years, I should say. And I think it's going to end up being a bad contract. I don't see it working. I don't expect the Heat to get to a NBA Finals. I think maybe they can get close to an Eastern Conference Finals. But I think after this year, I think Kyle Lowry's production is going to drop, and I think he'll be on a bad contract, and you guys won't be able to move him. And I don't. His
production's already dropped in the last. His production has dropped in the last 2
seasons.
Well, no,
but like how people are saying, but like how people are saying that he'll be a difference maker. I'm talking about. I don't think that his production will be a difference maker.
No, but no, he himself doesn't have to make the difference. He makes the difference for those around him. That's the difference. You're talking about Kyle. Look what Kyle is going to do to the rest of the guys around him on the floor. He is going to elevate. He's going to elevate their game.
But Greg, we have to remember, this is Kyle Lowry. This is not Chris Paul that we're talking about here. This is Kyle Lowry. Like how you're talking is like, if I didn't know, if I just joined, I think that we were talking about Chris Paul. Like that's all that I'm saying is that it's Kyle Lowry. And I just don't think that what he does or his impact on the court is going to be enough to get the Heat over the hump. That's all. What I'm saying.
No, I don't think the Heat is going to get over the hump either. But all I'm trying to say is Kyle Lowry can still contribute to a basketball team because of who he is as a player.
Okay,
he is that type of a player. He will elevate those around him, and that's what you need. That's leadership. That's you put the ball in his hand and he's going to find the right guy at the right time. That's what he's done his whole career. Or he will, when he needs to, just do it himself. He will just do it himself. And there's an expression up here on their broadcast for years now, because having seen him 9 straight seasons, practically every game he's played up here, they call it poke the bear. If you poke that bear, look out. He will take over for a 5-minute stretch.
Okay, we'll see. We will have to see.
Yes, sir.
He's been doing it for years.
Fantastic conversation, fellas. We got to move on to the next one. We go to the Brooklyn Nets. As constructed, should Brooklyn go for the number 1 seed and be the top seed in the Eastern Conference, or should they just settle for home court advantage 1 through 4. I'm going to send it over to Kev. Kev, my man, let us know.
I mean, of course, always trying to get that number 1 seed is a beautiful thing to have. Home court advantage. It's all nice, but I just think right now, especially with how this Kyrie thing is playing out for Brooklyn, that they should just focus on building championship habits throughout the course of the regular season. And whatever happens, wherever the cards may fall, do your thing. Whatever seed you get, it's probably going to be a top 4 because you have 2 great players, 2 Hall of Famers in James Harden and Kevin Durant who have already played with each other before. So, seeding, I mean, I wouldn't be mad at them for trying to go get it, but I just don't think that's the most important thing for them because regardless of what matchup they get in the playoffs, they're always going to be the favorites just because of those 2 guys that I just mentioned. And plus, I think they took a little bit of a hit losing a couple guys like Jeff Green. I think that might be a bigger loss than people want to talk about, but you still have 2 great players. So I just think, you add in a rookie like Cam Thomas, you still have Joe Harris, who was kind of bad in the playoffs, but I think the Nets will be fine and just build championship habits and, do what you got to do to make it through the regular season injury-free. And by the time the playoffs come, again, they'll be favored in any single matchup they're in. So you just focus on each game and just trying to get better and building good team habits.
Definitely.
Straight. I just post the comments. I don't write them. Just let you know.
Oh, time's up, Will. Time's up. It's over.
Mr. Rector, Mr. Rector.
We're moving on now. No,
Mr. Rector, to tie this into our last segment,
Yep.
let's say Brooklyn, they just play the cards as they lie, and then they get the 4 seed, they end up with like a Miami Heat. Is that going to be a problem for them?
I don't know if it's going to be that much of a problem for them. I mean, the biggest key for Brooklyn is Kevin hit it. They have to develop championship habits. They have to stay away from injuries. And if they do that, if they're a relatively healthy roster come playoff time, your seed doesn't matter. It really doesn't. There's only a couple of home courts that truly are home courts. There's not that many. Not really.
Yeah. Will, my man.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna take too much time here, people. But let me start.
No, we're done. We're done.
Take your time, man.
Look, guys, the Brooklyn Nets without Kyrie Irving should not be expected to be the top seed in the East. I think top 4 is more realistic, but I think that the Nets will finish around 3rd. Regular season doesn't matter as much, in my opinion, and I think that they will try to just finish in the top half of the table realistically to get home. Because you kind of want to play those games at home, especially if it comes down to like the wire. And even though I kind of get on the Miami Heat a lot, I personally do not want to see the Miami Heat in the first round of the playoffs. So especially if, let's say, if we're not at home, it comes down to a game 7 or something like that. So I do think that home court advantage matters. But I kind of do agree with Greg. I don't really think it matters too much. I think that the better team usually does win regardless of where you're playing at. But yeah, I think that that the Nets just need to focus on staying healthy and getting to the playoffs with as many able bodies as they can, because already without Kyrie there, you take an injury to KD or James Harden, then I think that just derails the whole thing. So kind of like with how the Clippers kind of do like a minutes thing with Kawhi and with Paul George to kind of bring them to the playoffs healthy, I think that Steve Nash should be looking to do something similar to that, because I don't really care 1 through 4. I still think that we reached the Eastern Conference Finals. So we definitely just need to focus on, load management and not overworking our superstars.
If I was Steve Nash, I would hire you on my staff there, Will, because you probably do a better job than he would.
There's new rules about that load management stuff too, right? I mean, they're getting tighter on this. They're not going to play with this anymore, right?
Or they can do minute restriction instead of just sitting them out.
That's right. Give them a minute restriction, right? Okay, LeBron played tonight, 16 minutes, but yeah, he played, so the fans got to see LeBron. Whatever the case may be, right? It's better than not seeing them play whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Greg. I remember it was about probably 6 years ago. My aunt took me to a Knicks versus Houston Rockets game, and I was so excited because I was going to go see James Harden play with Dwight Howard. That was the time that Dwight Howard was there, and I think both of those guys were out, and I'm sitting here like, why are we here? Like, what am I even? I'm like, who are these guys that I'm watching? So, I mean, I kind of do get like why the league is doing that, because as a fan that pays your money, like you're paying to go watch the Brooklyn Nets to go see James Harden, Kyrie, Kevin Durant. You're not really paying to see Joe Harris and Blake Griffin, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, I mean, I like the rule, but as a selfish fan, if I had to not see my team's best players play, if that meant that we could possibly make a deeper run in the playoffs, I think I'll take it.
But this again goes to something that's always driven me nuts for decades when it comes to the NBA. You use 10, 11, 12 guys in the regular season, and then you chop that roster down to almost nothing in the playoffs. It's ridiculous. If these 10, 11 guys can play in the regular season, they can play a playoff game. The game itself hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is the circumstance. It's now a playoff game. Well, use your entire team the way you've been doing all year long. That's how you load manage through the regular season. You've got a roster. Put them to work.
That's valid.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Shortening the bench is just the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Like, just why? This guy's played 17 minutes all year. So you're now going to put him down to 7? Why?
Well, is different, man. Not everybody's built.
No way. The focus and the intensity that changes. The game itself doesn't change, and who you are as a team isn't changing. You got to get real lucky to have that thin group that can take you like that all the way. Especially in this era with these guys being so much bigger, so much faster. I think it's just nuts to shorten your bench like that. Use your bodies. That's what they're there for.
Good cap off there, Greg. Let's move on to the rookies of the 21-22 season. Gentlemen, is Cade Cunningham a consensus rookie of the year? I'm just going to leave it out for anybody.
No.
Absolutely not.
No. Personally, I think that Jalen Greene, I think he was the better prospect. I think that the Pistons made a mistake taking Cade Cunningham over Jalen Greene, just me personally. I think that they drafted a point guard last year with Killian Hayes, and I get that he's kind of struggled with some injuries, but it didn't really make sense to take another point guard and back-to-back lottery pick. So I personally would have went with Jalen Greene. But I think Jalen Greene will win it for the Rockets. But my sleeper pick, and you guys should have known that this was coming, it's going to be Cam Thomas, okay? I don't know how they let Cam Thomas fall to the Brooklyn Nets. A player that led the SEC in scoring as a true freshman at 19 years old last season in college basketball, averaged 23 points per game. He led the summer league in points with 27 points per game. And in the preseason, he averaged 11 points per game in 13 minutes. Now, you take Kyrie Irving out of the equation, this is going to open up a lot more minutes for him. And getting a lot more minutes in the rotation, playing alongside KD and James Harden, he's going to get a lot more open looks, because even though I think that he is going to be able to score efficiently, you can't really key in too much on him with KD and Harden running around. So I think that with his scoring potential, he has with his scoring potential, he has the ability to force his way into this conversation, is what I should say.
Yeah, I agree with Will. I always thought that Jalen Greene was a better prospect coming out. I just think that people kind of forgot about Jalen Greene because he didn't take the college route. And I feel like had Jalen Greene gone to college, I believe it probably would have been Auburn or Memphis. He would have easily been the number 1 overall pick, because he went to the G League. People kind of forgot about him a little bit. And I just thought, I won't go as far as saying that the Pistons took the wrong guy, because I do think, it's hard to pass on a guy that's a 6'8", point guard. You know what I'm saying? But they kind of needed that. So I'm not mad at it, but I just think Jalen Green's situation is just too good for him not to win Rookie of the Year. He's a bucket getter, super athletic. He's only going to get better and better as the season progresses. Kevin Porter Jr. is the perfect point guard to have, because nobody in the league can really guard him because he's super shifty. So he's going to get all the shots that he wants to. He's going to have free reign to take as many shots as possible. I think Steven Silas is going to beg him to take as many shots as possible. So I personally have Jalen Greene as Rookie of the Year over Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with that. He's in the better situation. I mean, I don't care what sport you talk about when it comes to the first overall draft pick and all this other stuff. 9 times out of 10, you are going to a crappy situation. So expectations that they heap upon these guys are absolutely ridiculous. Green's in a better spot because he's in the more wide open conference as well. So he's going to put the ball in the bucket a lot more. Cade is going to do okay in Detroit. He's not going to rock the league though. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He's not going to do it. No.
Me personally, guys, you said you have Cam Thomas as a sleeper pick there, Will.
Yeah.
My sleeper pick is coming up after this next clip here. My man, Josh Giddey. Did you guys see some of these clips?
Oh, yeah.
Splash. Here we go. Let it hang. Let it hang. There he is. Skip. And he's not even going to look for the three, and he's just going to
we're in the Cam Thomas highlights here, guys. Like, what's going on here? What was Josh Giddey averaging? Like, what, 4 points per game? Come on.
Look at this right here. Oh, look at that pass. Yeah, come on. See, Cam Thomas can score better than Josh Giddey, but look at him handle the ball and just have his awareness. He looked off the defender right there and floated it right in his face. Look at it. And he made what's his name? Marcus Morris?
Morris? Monte Morris. Yeah.
Monte Morris. He made him turn all the way around.
When I previewed the draft lottery picks, I said Giddey was the guy with the highest basketball IQ out of the whole bunch, and he is.
Yes, sir.
He has the highest basketball IQ out of all of them.
Go for it,
yeah. Kevin. Okay, and another sleeper pick is Chris Duarte from the Pacers. I'm very high on him. I don't think he's going to have the freedom as some of these other guys that we mentioned because Indiana's just a really good team. I know we'll talk about that later, but Chris Duarte is the good. Like, he is a really good player. He's a bucket getter. I think Rick Carlisle's already been a fan of his. So, yeah, I just think, like, Chris Duarte, man, watch out for him. He's going to be a rotational player. And when the Pacers make the playoffs, he's going to get minutes in the postseason for Rick Carlisle's squad. And, yes, I do think Jalen Greene was a better pro prospect than Cade Cunningham going into the draft.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think Cade Cunningham got the hype train on him.
100%.
And that's exactly what had happened. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not saying he's not going to be a really good NBA player. But the hype train that he got the treatment, and they carried him over to that number one. But if you look at the two of them on the floor, I like Greene over Cunningham. I really do.
Kev, piggybacking off the point that you made earlier where you said that you think that Jalen Greene got a bit overlooked, I think I'd have to disagree with you because coming out of high school and you're going straight into the G League, I actually think that, yes, I think the traditional route did help Cade a bit more with going to college, doing all that. But, coming straight out of high school, going into the G League, you're playing against, you are now a professional. So at 18, however old he was when he came out of high school, you're playing against professional athletes. He averaged 17 points per game against ex-NBA players, against guys who are still trying to make it back into the league. So if anything, I think that, Greene to me is better because, and, you agree that Greene is better as well. So that's not the problem, but I just don't really agree that he was overlooked just because I think that Jalen Greene is much more ready than Cade is. Cade is going to find out, it feels like, to play against these pros consistently. But Jalen Greene was doing it and handling himself well on a pretty young Ignite squad that also had Kuminga and a few of those other guys there as well. So they had some growing pains, and I think that Greene played very well. So I was very surprised that he didn't go first, especially with how well he did against people who are trying to take his spot to get into the league and whatnot. So, yeah, it was very surprising to me.
It's one of the biggest changes that's going to be seen in the game. Jalen Greene is not the first. Luka Doncic played against men as a teenager. The kid over in Israel that the Wizards drafted last year, same thing. The kid from Turkey that Houston drafted, 17 years old, and you're an MVP. What?
Yeah, the European route is much harder than it is here.
And this is not easy basketball. He's playing against grown ass men. Hello.
And that's why I'm saying that. And I get what you're saying, Will, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of what you kind of just said. Like, Jalen Greene was playing against pros, and Cade's playing against other college players. So obviously, of course, one's going to look better than the other. If you put Jalen in a situation where he's playing against against college players, he's going to cook too. But my thing is just like, in the grand scheme of things, Jalen did the right thing because that's how you get better faster is by playing against pros as soon as possible. You feel like you're ready, go do that. So that's why I was higher on him. I'm just saying, again, if you put Jalen in the college situation, I think he would have undoubtedly been the number one overall pick.
Yeah,
Oh, and he would have been.
100%.
He was a Memphis commit, by the way. He was.
Yes.
A commit to Memphis.
I 100% agree, and I'm all in favor of players out of high school going to the G League, going overseas, because to me, college isn't important if you are one of these high draft picks. Like, let's be real, you're only going to school because you have to get to like the league. You're probably not going to class. Somebody's doing your homework. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. Like, so don't force these kids to go to school. I think get rid of this one and done rule. It's pointless. Let these players go get their, like, even like with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons, remember, I don't even think that he was eligible for the John Wooden Award. His teacher said that she never even seen the guy, but yet he was still passing the class. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to consider a D passing, but it was enough to get the credit. She was giving him a D. Why? Because he's Ben Simmons. If I was going to class, well, no, if I was not going to class, I'm getting the F. I have to retake the class. So I think it's pointless to make these kids go to school. Get rid of that one and done rule. And I'm all in favor of choosing the money option, because when you're going to be that high pick, I agree now that NCAA is trying to, give players the freedom to now sign contracts and do endorsements, but it's still not enough. They can do all that and play professional basketball. So I'm always going to go with them with that option.
Well,
100%.
because they've got a short window.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
God forbid, somebody like Zion. Do you guys remember when, I think it was Duke, I think they played Syracuse, and you remember when Zion blew through his shoe?
I think that was North Carolina.
That was actually the NC game. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, UNC, my fault.
Yeah.
God forbid Zion tore his ACL. So now you just made so much money for this program and you get nothing out of it. So I'm always going to go in favor of take the money while you can, because nothing's guaranteed to you.
No, exactly.
College is always going to be there. NBA will
boys.
not.
Yeah.
Y'all learned me on that one. I just sat back and listened. I like that conversation. So we're gonna move on to one of our last comments of the last topics of the evening. Will, you segued it for me. Is in the Ben Simmons soap opera. Is Doc Rivers partially at fault? Kevin, my man, let me know.
I'm glad you came to me first with this one, because I got a lot to get off my chest. But I know Will and Greg I know they got better things to say than I do. But absolutely. And honestly, like, it goes from top to bottom. It goes all the way from Daryl Morey, Elton Brand, Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris. Everybody in the Philadelphia 76ers organization deserves some type of blame and are at fault, because, yes, Ben Simmons didn't show up to do what he did. But me personally, like, what we seen from Ben Simmons in the playoffs, in that Game 7 especially, was what I've always thought he was. Like, I think, shout out to Jason Maples on Twitter. He always says that people fall in love or fell in love with the idea of Ben Simmons rather than the actual player that Ben Simmons is. Like, how long are we going to actually champion him to start shooting jumpers? But again, that is also plays in part to Doc Rivers too, because Doc Rivers, honestly, like, yes, I know they had a very successful regular season last year. They're the number 1 overall seed, but I still don't feel like he put his players in the best possible situations to succeed. And I think that started off with Ben Simmons. Yes, Tobias Harris had a pretty good year. And that's another name too. Like, Tobias Harris did not show up in the playoffs whatsoever, but he somehow managed to escape a lot of blame. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's on a max contract right now. He didn't play anything close to a max contract player does in the playoffs. So everybody's at fault. Doc Rivers deserves a lot of blame, especially for how he handled it after they lost, by pretty much just saying that he doesn't know if Ben Simmons is a championship point guard or not. Like, again, Ben Simmons is still at fault because they're paying him all this money too, and he should be getting better each and every single year, because I think he's, only 25, so he's not even at his peak right now or in his prime right now, so he has no excuse for not getting better. But also, that's kind of on the Sixers for not holding these guys accountable. Ever since Jimmy Butler left, and Jimmy Butler kind of exposed them, he said that it's just too much uncertainty going on in this franchise, and that's a big problem right now. They need to start holding dudes accountable. It's no way that Joel Embiid should still be having a bad diet or should be out of shape. As good as he is, as talented as he is, as skilled as he is, it's just no reason for him to be getting injured and different things like that. So I'm just looking at it like, yes, Doc Rivers is part of the blame. Everybody's part of the blame, but it really comes down to, it's just been a huge lack of accountability from top to bottom throughout the Philadelphia 76ers organization.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. It's been The process is definitely something that is a complete epic failure. This is one thing that drives me crazy too in this modern era and the internet age of instant gratification and all this other stuff and the one and done player. These guys, everybody's got these expectations of these guys right off the hop. I'm sorry, they're too immature. They're not physically matured when they first come in here and they get all the attention and all that other jazz. They're not mentally mature. If you tell me that Joel Embiid is a true leader, I'm going to laugh for about the next hour and a half. A true leader elevates everybody around him. Always. Always. That's what true leadership is. And in this day and age, you don't see that true leadership very often. It's rare. So enjoy the talents that they do have, but understand that those talents are very limited. These guys are not. They're not going to lead you to a title on their own backs. And again, Kevin, you mentioned it earlier. This is a team sport. Why we put these expectations on these guys, it boggles my mind. They're not ready for it. Ben Simmons was never ready for this. Ben Simmons has never been used properly. Okay, yeah, he's 6'10". Yeah, he can dribble the ball up the floor. Yeah, he can make a pass. He's not a damn point guard.
Facts.
He isn't.
Let me get into that really quick, Greg.
Wait,
you segued me perfectly.
Okay.
I'll get to you, Will, right after this.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
So we got Ben Simmons. He was standing on the block to start this clip. Here, let me start over. He's standing right there on the block. Okay?
All right,
he gets one. He's able to see the floor a little bit. Find big old Embiid at the top of the key, right? That's an easy decision to make. And then, did you see where he was? He was on that block. Now he gets a double screen. And then Tobias Harris tries to drive, but he was still sitting on that block, forcing Tobias Harris to get that high arcing shot. That was a terrible shot, really. And then they just want him to sit on that block and be waiting for a little dip and dunk. That's the only thing they felt comfortable with him doing.
Yeah.
And so, Will, with that, please enlighten the crowd.
Put him in a pack.
Look, man, I don't like this Ben Simmons slander that's going on here, okay? It's like Kevin said, people fall in love with the idea of Ben Simmons and with what his God-given abilities in terms of his height and his physicality, what it can give you. And look, Kevin, I'm one of those people. I fell in love with the player and I fell in love with the prospect of him. Look, Ben Simmons is my favorite point guard. Yes, point guard, 6'10" point guard. And if there's one player that if you had to pick from young players of who you'd want to build your team around, let's not act like Ben Simmons is not a player that is in that conversation. Now, Doc Rivers is a big reason for the Ben Simmons fallout with the organization. Because after being eliminated from the playoffs and with Ben Simmons being heavily criticized, we all saw this fan videos, him getting booed and all this stuff. You'd expect the organization that gave a player a 5-year contract worth $177.2 million would protect him more. Now, instead of giving encouragement, Doc Rivers, when asked if he believes that Ben Simmons can be the point guard on a championship team, I quote, he said, "I don't know the answer to that. Well, I don't know that question or the answer to that right now," Rivers said. And then he also repeated, "I don't know the answer to that." So to me, I think that Ben thought that the 76ers have turned his back on him. And, his decision was, I think that his decision came down, like what made him want to leave was that he felt like he just wasn't being backed, basically. And I think that the relationship for him and the 76ers has to be over. And I think that especially with this offseason drama with, there was even reports that his teammates want to fly out to LA to meet with him. And I think that the reports, we don't know if it's true, but, you have to give Woj and these guys their credit. The report said that he told his teammates that he did not want to meet with them. For that, I thought that he had to be traded because you have to go to battle with these teammates every single night. And it feels like it's just not there for both teams to want to go to battle. Well, for both parties to want to go to battle with each other. So I definitely think that, Doc Rivers, I think he's failed Ben Simmons in terms of not protecting his player. Because I get that he was an integral reason for why they lost. But I just think that you kind of have to give him encouragement in the public limelight instead of just kind of piling on to it now with people saying, "Oh, your coach doesn't even believe in you." And all that I'm saying is that if the 76ers want another star point guard, they can definitely give Brooklyn a call and maybe we could work out a deal here. But yeah, no, for me, Ben Simmons, I'm a critic of Ben Simmons because I believe that he can do so much more. But I'm not really here for the Ben Simmons slander, and I think that he is a point guard. And you guys want to talk about Kyle Lowry being a true point guard? I think Ben Simmons is another version of a true point guard. Yes, he doesn't have the shooting ability of one, but I think point guards aren't really there to shoot. That's why you have a shooting guard. Point guards are there to facilitate your offense. They're there to run the court. They're there to, maybe, like call plays. Also, tell you like what's going on defense and maybe call plays for you guys to switch up or whatever. That's what a point guard's really supposed to do, to dish the rock to everybody else. Point guard's not supposed to be able to just, shoot from three consistently and all that stuff. His first job is to handle and pass the ball. But Ben Simmons,
traditionally,
a traditional point guard, which is what I was hearing with Kyle Lowry earlier.
Yeah.
So if you guys are calling Kyle Lowry a traditional point guard, then Ben Simmons is a traditional point guard. And I think
there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference.
I'm taking Ben Simmons over Kyle Lowry any day of the week.
One has a basketball IQ and the other doesn't. There's a huge difference.
High IQ.
If he had such a high IQ, he would know damn well how to get his own shot and get out of the way of Joel Embiid. He would have developed that. That's what I'm talking about. He would have developed that where you're not occupying the same space as your big man on the floor. Ben Simmons should have done this on his own. If he had a basketball IQ, he would have worked on that. Not this offseason, not 2 off seasons ago, but 3 off seasons ago.
So you're telling me that
this has been continual. This has been continual.
So he
is who he is. And you know what he is, Will? He is a 5. He is a 5. In this day and age, he can be a 5.
Okay, fine. He'll be my point 5 then. He's still running my floor. Okay, fine.
You can do it that way. You can
do it that way. And Will too, though, you missed out on an important part about being a point guard too. Is yes, they run the offense, they get shooters involved, things like that. But also, when the team is playing slow and needs some offense and some life, your point guard has to be able to get a bucket, and that's what the game essentially comes down to. And Ben, like you can say he's high IQ, and I guess to a certain extent he is, but eventually your team needs you to be able to put the ball in the hole too. And I'm not even saying he needs to get a crazy jumper. I'm just saying be aggressive. Just want to actually put some force and try and get your team to win games. Like that's my only thing. I don't think, Ben Simmons is as bad as, fans are trying to make him out to be, but I don't think he's ever been as good as fans made him out to be. I think he's actually a really good player, to be honest, but he does need to play center. I think he'll be the perfect center. And I do think, because I think Joe asked it earlier a few minutes ago, with the true point guard next to him, like say a Kyle Lowry or Chris Paul, he would be great. He would be perfect because he does have a nice little hook shot, but he can't display that in Philly because obviously you have another great center, or you can say whatever you want about him, a really talented center in Joel Embiid that lives in the post as well. So it's like it's give or take. So Ben Simmons really he got to get out of Philly, man. If he wants to maximize his ability, he got to get out of Philly.
Yeah, and look, I agree with you guys both on Ben Simmons could be the perfect 5. Look, I don't really care where you put him. I don't care. He's running my if I'm a GM, I want Ben Simmons, and I'm taking Ben Simmons over most point guards, especially like a Kyle Lowry. And I'm just bringing him up because he was a topic. I'm taking Ben Simmons over Kyle Lowry 100% of the time.
Yeah, leave Kyle alone, man. Kyle ain't doing nothing.
Look, because I think that people just harp too much on the offensive side of it. Ben Simmons guards the 1 through the 5.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I was just about to say that. Yeah,
he's a size mismatch as well.
I love that he guards the 1 through the 5. What I don't love is that he doesn't know how to elevate the rest of his team on that other side of the floor.
Exactly.
Nor himself.
That's not fair. That's not fair because
it's true.
Because I think that Ben Simmons, not only do I think that he's good, when it comes to his passing vision, but I think on defense, he could also elevate his teammates on the defensive side. This is why he's a defensive player of the year candidate. So, I mean, let's not act, like Ben Simmons is just like a scrub here, guys. I mean, he's an all-star for
not at all.
We're not saying we're not saying he's a scrub. What we're saying is he doesn't do what's necessary to make his entire team better.
Let me interject here, guys.
Greg,
that's the problem.
One second, gentlemen.
6'10". Can't do it. Give me Ben Simmons every day of the week.
I'm not saying not take Ben Simmons. I'm just saying Ben Simmons, learn the game that's played in the NBA.
To your point, Greg. That's what I teach all of my basketball players, is that the ability to always look towards the basket and always be a threat to score is what generates the rest of the offense.
The rest of the offense.
So if I'm a point guard, I need to have my eyes towards the basket and then have that defender jump, and then I can create for everybody else. And I have to be.
Why isn't Embiid? But why isn't?
Let me finish real quick.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
But if I'm not able to make those shots, or people know I'm not a threat from those shots, I become that much easier to guard and much less dimensional. Go ahead, sir.
So why isn't Embiid getting any criticism for learning how to play with Ben Simmons?
I criticize Embiid all the time too, because Joel Embiid doesn't stay in shape. He's always getting hurt because he doesn't know how to stay in shape.
Preach.
Did Hakeem have to learn how to play with his teammates, or did his teammates have to learn how to play with Hakeem?
No, I think this is a bit different though. I think
they play the same type of footwork in the block position. Go ahead, Kev.
Embiid averaged like 26 points on a torn meniscus. Like, people forget that he was hurt throughout the course of his playoff appearance or run, and he was still averaging over 20 plus. So I'm just like, for the most part, he held it down. I think the only players, honestly, that really don't deserve that much blame, I think Embiid deserves a little bit of blame just because he could be a better leader than what he is. Yeah. But he showed up on the court. But I think the biggest problem was that the only two guys that really actually played well, I'll say three, that played well for the Sixers is Joel Embiid, Seth Curry was our second best player, and Tyrese Maxey, who was a rookie. So it's just like everybody else just did not play good, but, they're going to blame Ben Simmons because he's the star. And again, I actually am a fan of Ben Simmons. Like, Will, like you just mentioned, I'm not his biggest fan, but like you just mentioned, I think his value of being able to guard 1 through 5 is a really important thing because it's only a select amount of few players that can legitimately guard 1 through 5. That is very important. Bam Adebayo, I love him because he can guard 1 through 5. Like, when point guards get a screen and you have to switch on to Bam and they think it's easy, no, it's not. Bam is going to clamp.
This conference has a few guys who can go 1 through 5. Ben is one of them.
Yeah,
Bam is one of them.
Jonathan Isaac, I think, is one.
Yep. And OG Anunoby in Toronto has done it for. He can do any team. It doesn't matter. And they drafted the one who can also do it at number 4 in Barnes. He can go 1 through 5 as well. In the East, you've got guys that can do this on the defensive end. The whole problem is that, and this is where Scotty Barnes is going to have the issue, where he's not going to be considered a rookie of the year. He doesn't have the shot yet either. He has every other aspect of it. He's a 6'9" point guard. Well, I mean, just the same 1 inch shorter than Ben Simmons, but he doesn't have the shot either. They're not going to make him do the same things that Philadelphia tried with Ben Simmons, though. They're not going to do that to him.
But I think so similar to, so if you look at, just real quick, the Milwaukee Bucks situation, and I'm no way comparing Ben Simmons to Giannis, but I see a lot of similarities because I see Giannis has worked on his shot and it's kind of paying off with him being able to hit more consistently versus Ben Simmons, where I don't think that he's worked on his shot enough. Now, the reason that I'm bringing up the Bucks is because the Bucks run basically like what they've kind of adopted is Giannis is your main ball handler, and they run a 5-out really, where Giannis has the ball. Everybody find somewhere on the damn 3-point line to go to, and he's gonna drive. They collapse, he kicks out. Do the same thing with Ben Simmons. And if I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, I'm building around Ben Simmons. If it came down to it, I'm taking Ben over Embiid. Like, I think that you can.
But that's
why though.
The choice has already been made, though.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing, Will. The choice was made, and they made that choice for Embiid. Yeah,
I think it's the wrong choice.
That's what we're talking about, though. That's what we're talking about. The Philadelphia 76ers, as an organization, they made bad decisions. They really should have. They should have capitalized on Ben Simmons once they decided that Embiid was their main man, which they did first. As soon as they did that, that organization should have said, Ben, we're going to get as much stuff for you as we can, and off you go. But they didn't do it. But by the same turn of hand, Ben Simmons, as a professional athlete, has not done what he needs to do either. That is where people get angry with it. That's where the anger comes in. He doesn't have it up here to do what's necessary physically.
And Will, before you go real quickly, because you did make a good point about comparing Giannis and Ben, but you also have to understand too, though, that Giannis is clearly the best player in Milwaukee, and Ben is not the best player in Philly. You can't take Embiid off the block because that's it. his strength. You can't take your best player out of their comfort zone. You feel me? Like that would just be counterproductive. You have to let him get in the post because that's where he's most effective and that's where he's one of the best post players in the league. You can make the debate he's the best, him or the Joker. So I'm just like, you can't necessarily do that. Like the Sixers had the perfect team around Ben Simmons to be successful in 2019. And not only did the front office fail them, but Ben and the team failed him because you gave him every single weapon. You had a shooter in JJ Redick. You had an all-star wing in Jimmy Butler. You still had Tobias Harris, who at that time was still really good and still is now. But then you had everybody on that team to be successful, and Ben didn't maximize it. And that's when, I'm not going to lie, I kind of gave up on him. I still have faith in him to be a good player, and I think he is still a really good player. Again, I do not think Ben Simmons is a scrub or trash like people make him out to be. That is a good player, but it's time to get better, bro. Like, eventually you got to get better. Like, you're getting paid all this money. You have to show your franchise that you're actually committed to playing basketball. That's my only thing.
Yeah, and look, and I agree with all that criticism because, as I said when I brought up Giannis clearly has worked on his game. You're seeing him shoot mid. You're seeing him take threes. Even if he misses 3 straight threes, he's going to come up. He's going to take another 3. So, I agree with you guys. But in my opinion, fine. If you want to say that Ben Simmons is not the best player in Philly, then you trade Embiid. In my opinion, you get rid of Embiid. I feel like Embiid would probably even have, maybe you could probably get even better pieces for a player like Embiid versus right now that you can get for Ben Simmons. I think you have to build around Ben Simmons, but they're not going to. I think it's over. But my opinion, I'd build around Ben Simmons. You just get him a bunch of shooters, and then guess what? You can't now kind of just sit in like the paint because now even if you do, if I drive at 6'10", generally the other point guard is going to be on Ben Simmons. Automatic mismatch. So if I drive, now you have to come help. And the same thing like Giannis does, you can kick it out. I think Ben and Embiid do not work together. Embiid, I think, is much more of a liability, not from the basketball side of things, but like Greg said, from the off-the-court things, such as not being able to stay healthy. Like it seems like he's more interested in trolling than he is being able to stay fit. And to me, that's the issue. You're only as good as you're available. And Joel Embiid is rarely let me not say rarely, but he hasn't been available for a large part of his Sixers career. So to me, you build around Ben Simmons, and I think that the perfect center for like a player like Ben Simmons would be like a cat, like like Karl Towns, because Karl Towns is like he can score, but he's a shooter as a big man, and yeah, I think that the 76ers are just gonna ruin the talent here with Ben Simmons, and I think that once he goes to another team, he'll show everybody that all those jokes were for nothing.
And I'll put this on one hand that I could count in the whole league that would let Ben be their point guard. I'm serious. He is a 5.
Okay, that's fine. But he can run the floor as a 5.
That's right. But let him play where he's going to be effective offensively, where he doesn't have to worry about developing that deep shot and all that other nonsense. Then you don't have that criticism coming to him as long as he's playing what he's capable of doing.
Ben Simmons
that's where they failed. The Sixers failed him, and the Sixers failed Ben Simmons as Ben Simmons has failed himself.
And that's what I want. My bad. That's what I want to touch on too. Is that I mentioned accountability when we first started about talking about this topic. You look at, I know Randall's a fan of the Timberwolves. The problem with the Timberwolves and why they've been so bad under Karl Anthony Towns' tenure there is because they don't hold any type of standards or expectations for Cat. That's the biggest issue right now. It's the same thing for Philly. And I understand, I don't ever want to discredit Cat. I understand. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you have to push these guys. You're investing a max contract, millions of dollars into these guys, but you're not holding them to any expectations. Like this year, if you're the front office of the Timberwolves, you should be saying, Cat, you better get us to the play-in this year or else. You know what I'm saying? Not as a threat, but I'm just saying, like, push them to be better. You're giving them all this money. Why stay content? You know what I'm saying? That's the same problem that a lot of these young stars face when they're in situations like this. I think Ben Simmons is a victim of the same exact problem.
We did give him that big contract for, getting us to the first round of the playoffs and winning one game, but that was on the shoulders of Jimmy Butler. We all know that.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Taj Gibson blocking a shot in that Nuggets game, we wouldn't have been there. So I totally get what you're saying, but you cannot deny that Cat is one of the best shooting, or is the best shooting big man in the league. And once he puts it all together on the low block, he could already finish in the mid-range. He can hit post fade shots, but he just needed to bully up. And now, this year, he's got the most weight that he's ever had. And he's the biggest guy on our team now next to Naz Reid. And those guys aren't even as big as some of the centers that they're going to be going up against. So they have a lot of work in store for them. But I think Cat is going to come and meet the challenge and really show that he can be one of the top bigs in the league, especially when he went up against Embiid last year, dunking on his head, and Embiid always getting into the heads of all the other big men. I think Cat is just right around that corner.
And lastly, too, like with that, it's just like I want to see. I know it's an Eastern Conference show, but I just want to see Cat too commit defensively. He shows you flashes. I know, Randall, you see it every night. He shows good flashes of playing defense, but commit to it. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Ben. Just commit to being aggressive. Commit to trying to challenge yourself to get better. That's all it comes down to, bro. You're getting paid.
Again, Kevin, this comes down to the same thing I've said about Embiid and Simmons and all the rest of these guys. When they come in too young, they don't have that completeness to them. They're not anywhere near a finished product.
100%.
This is why the criticism that so many of these guys get, I get angry with the criticism, because this is a totally different era. You're not a 3 and a 4-year college starter. You're not getting that type of education on the game anymore. These guys go and dominate from the time they play on the AAU level, etc. They're not held accountable from that level all the way through. And that causes this situation. And then on top of that, to make it worse for them, they got the short careers, and God bless you, go make as much money as you can. But when you see those dollar signs attached to that name, the performance doesn't match those numbers. And that's where the problem is.
What a great way to wrap up the show, guys. I think we had a fantastic preview of the Eastern Conference. We really got some entertaining stuff in here. We got plenty of things to clip and post on our socials later. I really like to thank you guys for coming in. I thank everybody for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, and share some couple comments and share these videos. We're going to keep pumping out the content, man. I'm going to be hosting the NBA show this year. You can follow me at Randall Gim, and I'm going to throw it to each one of these guys, and they're going to tell you where to follow them at and what kind of work they got coming up. So, Kev, please let us know what you got going on.
As most of you guys see, my @ on Twitter is @EasyMoneyKev7. Follow me, I'll follow you back. I got the Kevo Bands Hoops podcast that comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So stay tuned for that. I will be dropping some college basketball articles very soon for MBS. It's been a minute, but college basketball is back. It's a great season, this upcoming season, between just everybody in the country this year. So I can't wait to do that. And I appreciate you guys for having me on, man. It was really fun. Hope I get a chance to do this more.
Absolutely, Kev. Would love to have you on later this season, man. Stay
for
up.
Sure.
All right, Mr. Will, what do you got going on?
Yeah, so you guys can follow me at sportsdaily.media. As introduced earlier, I am half of Game Breakers, the podcast. It's a sports podcast where we mainly talk about NFL and NBA, sprinkled in some soccer. But yeah, mainly NFL and NBA. Game Breakers, you can find us anywhere that podcasts are available. But if you have an iPhone, your podcast app, or you can just go on Spotify, we're there. Episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. New episode dropped today. So yeah, that's the main thing that I do want to push right there.
Really appreciate having you on, Will. You and Greg had some heated conversations about the Heat, and I'd love to have you guys on at the same time. You guys, like Joe said, man, we got to get you guys your own show.
All right, guys.
Well, we have fun. That's the whole thing. Will has his view, I have mine. But at the end of the day, most of the things that we end up agreeing on for quite a bit of the time, it's just a different approach.
Yeah.
I love it. All
right, guys.
All right, man.
All right, Will. Stay easy. Mr. Greg, last but absolutely not least, please tell us what you got going on. What's coming up?
Oh, I'm doing at Greg Cowboys. Do Cowboys Corner for the most part. You'll see a preview of each upcoming Cowboys game. You'll get me to do a little bit of writing about the Raptors as well, since I have to see every one of their games up here. I'll also touch on hockey. I've touched on baseball, college athletics, all kinds of topics. Every once in a while, I'll touch on nutsandboltsports.com. And that's pretty much what I do.
Are the Lightning going to be able to get 3 in a row?
No.
Easy enough. Take the field.
No.
Take the field.
I don't care what sport. I don't care what sport you're talking about. The days of dynasties are over.
That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. Thank you so much for coming on, Greg. We will catch you next time, sir.
It was great. Have a good one, Randall.
You too. Thank you so much, everybody. Like I said, you can follow me at Randall Gim, and I will be at the Timberwolves home opener. So I think I'm going to sneak my camera in. I don't know if I'll just use my phone and get some clips. I'm going to be real close to the bench, real close to the media section. Cost a pretty penny, but it's worth it for my Wolves. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you later this season on Nuts and Bolts Sports YouTube channel. Everybody have a good night.